This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
My countrymen and my friends, I had hoped against hope that some miracle would prevent a devastating war and bring to an end the invasion.
This most serious threat World Wrestling Federation has ever known.
The long-term future of sports entertainment could change forever.
A succession of actual wars have shaken the entire world and have threatened to bring on the gigantic conflict, which is today, unhappily, a fact.
No force of nature and no act of God could stop this invasion from happening.
I have said not once but many times that I have seen war and that I hate war.
This is our last chance.
There's no going back. There is no tomorrow. They want to finish us all.
Feel this moment for the rest of your life.
This war is only half over, and it could damn well be lost.
We're laying it all on the line.
Nothing can stop the WCW and ECW.
Austin is going to lead us into invasion.
Lift up your heart. All will come right.
We will kick WCW and ECW's.
No WWF superstar is going to deny us from our destiny.
Dad, the sports entertainment.
I have seen war, and I hate war.
Place to Be Nation. Welcome back to another episode of Nation Invasion. I'm your host / captain, James Gruenberg, and things are the winds are taking a little bit of a turn for the WWF side of the invasion. As last week, the July 9th, 2001 Raw episode, WCW and ECW formed an alliance together. And together they will take over the WWF. And again, it is Shane McMahon, Paul Heyman, and the new owner of ECW, Stephanie McMahon. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin has jumped and walked off the plank for Team WWF on last week's SmackDown. So we have to see where his head is at as we lead into Invasion. But before we get to tonight's show, let me bring in my first mate on this ship. He is co-host of Wrestling Warzone, and that is Mr. Chad Campbell. Chad, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Gruney. How's it going?
It's going good. We're getting through these Raw and SmackDown of the Invasion angle time frame, and you got a hot one here.
Yeah, this will be an interesting time frame because if we do make it all the way to WrestleMania 17 with Wrestling Warzone, and then where Jacob started on the Ruthlessly Aggressive podcast, this is kind of a good bridge from the end of that podcast to the start of his. This kind of weird time frame, I would say, where it's a big angle, but it's I think people know about the invasion, of course, long-term fans and fans at the time, but it's something that doesn't get dissected too often in great detail. It's just sort of a lot of revisionist thinking regarding it.
Yeah, it is. And Chad, speaking of this time frame, I want to know, were you actively watching WWF at the time in 2001?
Yeah, I was an active fan. Actually, that July 9th Raw, was from Phillips Arena, and I was bummed because my family takes a family vacation to Panama City every year, and it so happened that the week we were in Panama City fell in line with when the Raw was in Atlanta, so I didn't attend that one. Missed a pretty eventful episode of Raw. But yeah, I was a WWF fan at this time, watching most of the product. I would say around this time when WCW went out of business, my main passion as far as wrestling concerned kind of shifted to the independent stuff. I was also starting to get into Japan and tape trading more. So I was still, actually becoming more of a quote unquote, hardcore internet wrestling type fan on the message boards, starting to post more on Death Valley Driver and whatnot around this time. But was certainly following what was going on in WWF too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you weren't there at the Raw at the Phillips Arena. I was going to ask you that next, but you already gave me the answer. But you're a WCW guy. You were at the Georgia Dome back in 1998, right?
Correct. Yeah, I was there for both July 6th, 1998 and January 4th, 1999 episodes of Monday Night Nitro.
Okay, so you're WCW through and through, you would say, kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get through it as we chronicle on Wrestling Warzone, but I mean, 2000 WCW, I was out. I think you're the only one that likes 2000 WCW, James. So I was definitely wavering in 1999. Got very frustrated with what was going on and kind of the peaks and valleys of the product at the time. And then I did order Bash at the Beach 2000, and that was kind of my final straw as far as WCW is concerned. So I did not watch any WCW programming in real time from Bash at the Beach 2000 until the final Nitro. Now I've gone back and watched some, but that was it for me. And I would say from really Halloween Havoc 1999 up until Bash at the Beach 2000 was certainly hit or miss. I actually moved from Alabama to Georgia around that time. And when I moved to Georgia, I picked up a few friends that were just getting into WWF at the beginning of 2000 when I moved. So we were doing kind of the party phone calls during Raw around that time, and it was pretty much Raw only. Every once in a while we'd flip to a Nitro, but it was predominantly Raw. So my WCW watching, I was a full-fledged fan from the NWO up until I would say the finger poke of doom, and then from there things started going south with my fandom, and then by 2000, like I said, Bash at the Beach 2000, I completely checked out.
That's a good time to check out when it's hitting the iceberg or it's about to really sink. One more thing before we get into tonight's shows here. Buff Bagwell was released July 9th, 2001 on Raw due to his actions backstage. He got into a fight with Shane Helms. I went over it with Jenny that they had their match at Tacoma, Washington, and then he got into a fight with Shane Helms at training. And then on July 9th, he gets fired by Jim Ross, I would say 3 hours before the show. He comes in, Jim Ross pulls him aside with Vince, and they let him go. Chad, had the Booker T Buff Bagwell match happened in Atlanta, Georgia, would Buff Bagwell still have a job in the WWF in 2001?
I mean, I think he certainly was ruffling feathers with his backstage antics. I definitely think the way they presented that in Tacoma, them coming out completely cold in a fairly cold market. There was the Spring Stampede '99 stuff, so it wasn't completely unknown that WCW would be known to that market, but they just sort of kind of destined them guys to fail. I think they were set up to fail in a lot of ways, but I don't have much sympathy for Buff either with the way he handled himself. So it's tough to say. He might have been given a little more leeway, but he wasn't making too many friends backstage either. So he probably would have been gone sooner than later, in my estimation.
Gotcha. And to this day, apparently, he's made peace with everybody. He still will not make peace with Jim Ross.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Alrighty, well let's dive into the shows here tonight. We're live Monday Night Raw, July 16, 2001. We're in Providence, Rhode Island, and Chad, our good friend Justin Rosero, was at this show.
Yes, he was. So this is the Go Home to Invasion. It's at the Dunk. And yep, Justin was live, as you said.
Yep, we get a recap of Stone Cold walking out on Vince and Team WWF. Vince McMahon is saying that he needs the old Stone Cold, but Austin won't even give him a stunner. And then Stone Cold is sitting at the Friendly Tap, which is Tim White's bar in Providence, Rhode Island, which is like 10 or 15 minutes away from the arena. So Stone Cold is just sitting there and like moping around, basically.
Yeah, if you look at I actually did a little Google map today just to see, because they kept referencing in the show that it was 15 minutes away, and yeah, it's 11 miles. Google Maps actually said exactly 15 minutes to drive from the Friendly Tap to the Dunk.
Oh, nice. So they're right there. You know, it's not like
right on cue.
It's not like when they said that the police station was a million miles away for Goldberg to get back to the Georgia Dome when it was right across the street.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, in the Friendly Tap itself, you know, coming where I live in the South, like, I guess it's still in business. I mean, obviously Tim White's not the owner, but if you Google map the Friendly Tap, it'll show up on the outside and stuff, and it's a pretty interesting looking building. Next time I visit Justin, I may see if we can do the pilgrimage up there. It's north of Providence, and he lives kind of south, so I did that Google map, and it's about 35 minutes from where he lives. But it looked like it definitely looks like a neighborhood bar that you would kind of just hang out at.
Yep. So now Spike Dudley comes to the ring, and keep in mind, Chad, he's still in a relationship with Molly, but like I feel like they took a week off from there as well. But it's like, so they're going back to Molly and Spike, and it's like, are they in a relationship? Are we still on this storyline? Anywho, he invites Molly to the ring. He tells Molly he loves her, and Molly says, she's got something to say to Spike back. She says that she loves Spike as well, and Spike gives Molly a rose. All of a sudden, now comes Paul Heyman. Paul reminds Spike that Paul took him in when no one else would. He wants Spike to come back to the ECW side. Spike declines, and then Spike wants to fight Heyman. Out come the Dudley Boys. Bubba says Spike stole the spotlight, and then he also cost the Dudley Boys the WWF Tag Team titles to the APA last week on Raw. Dudley Boys beat down Spike. Molly low blows Paul, hits Bubba with a chair. Devon sets Molly up, and Bubba puts her through a table. Your thoughts on this, Chad? Opening segment.
Yeah, so I have a lot of issues with this Raw, I guess I can say. and my main problem with most of the angles is when you're talking about the magnitude of the invasion and kind of just the threat overall to the entire company, WWF, I thought most of the angles in of themselves on this Raw were either played for comedy or for kind of different tones. They didn't have the tone that I thought should be conveyed heading into this, you know, pay-per-view that has a lot of magnitude and ramifications to it. So the opening stuff with Spike and Molly, and kind of their little cute relationship and courtsmanship and whatever. It was fine. It was a fine, I guess, like mid-card fodder. But you get a complete tonal shift with Heyman first coming out, and then the Dudleys. And, you know, the Dudleys had been power bombing women. Bubba's been power bombing a lot of women throughout 2001 through the table, and this week it is Molly. So again, it's trying to get over the violence of the Dudley Boys and them being really the bullies of the WCW ECW contingent, but it felt like too drastic of a shift to me from the Spike and Molly stuff to when the Dudleys came out and eventually powerbombed Molly through the table.
Yeah, it does like a complete 180. It's like, oh, I love you. Oh, you're going through a table. So it's interesting. But like you said, the Dudley Boys are not a tag team to mess with, and they're proving it. They'll put their own family member through a table.
Right.
Kurt Angle is backstage trying to. He's trying to practice telling Mr. McMahon that he can lead the WWF into Invasion and they're going to win. Vince asks Kurt where Austin is, and Kurt Angle's like, not only is Stone Cold not here, but he's at a bar drinking. Can you trust somebody who's going to be drinking while they should be leading Team WWF? And Vince is like, I need to go find Stone Cold.
Yeah, this was kind of just a pretty quick segment to set up the rest of the night, and basically your hook for the whole show is they're trying to recruit Stone Cold for Team WWF.
Get him back. Yep. So now we have Farouk versus Chuck Palumbo. It's the one half of WWF Tag Team Champions versus one half of the WCW Tag Team Champions. So we're getting a little preview of some matches here at Invasion. I should remind you, Chad, most of these matches are just announced on TV. There's really no build-up except for this, the 5-on-5, the referee match, and the bra and panties match. Everything else is just throw it together and we'll see what sticks.
Yeah, we'll get to the build, but even on tonight's show, on this Raw, 6 days from the pay-per-view, they throw together a couple more matches on this kind of go on Raw. So.
Yep. Palumbo goes to work on Farouk, a fallaway slam to Chuck, baseball slide to Farouk, flying shoulder tackle by Chuck, Bradshaw and O'Hare fight on the outside, DDT by Palumbo, a super kick by Chuck Palumbo for the win. For this matchup, I went 2 stars. I thought it was good. Chuck Palumbo is trying to show, that he can wrestle, and Farouk did a good job on taking the pin to try and make the WCW Tag Team Champions look good, because it's been said that the APA actually did like working with O'Hare and Palumbo. So I went 2 stars, Chad.
Well, I think O'Hare and Palumbo, as I said, I wasn't watching at the time, but going back and rewatching 2000, 2001 stuff, I think O'Hare and Palumbo had a lot of potential when you watch the end days of WCW. They do stand out, and as a match itself, I thought it was fine. I did like that. There was some kind of nonsense going on with O'Hare and Bradshaw on the outside, and Farouk was a little distracted and he runs into a super kick, but overall I thought there was much more kind of egregious jobbing of the Alliance guys, so I thought this was well done and good enough as a match leading into their tag match on Sunday.
All right, yep. Then we have Kurt. He's backstage again, complaining that he should be the leader of the WWF. Raven says Kurt has done nothing hardcore. Raven then challenges Kurt to an ECW rules match. And then we have Mike Awesome versus Edge. Lance Storm then takes the microphone and challenges Edge and Christian to a tag team match at Invasion. So we have our first, throw in a match together. They've been feuding for a little bit because Edge and Christian cost Mike Awesome the hardcore title to Jeff Hardy last week on SmackDown. So they're trying to just get their revenge against Edge and Christian.
Yeah, so this setting up this tag match, this is what I was talking about earlier. I thought this was way too. I mean, I know it's Edge and Christian's stick to be goofy and comedy, but way too much comedy. I didn't. I don't think it particularly holds up rewatching it. It wasn't very humorous to me, and when I understand like with Storm's character, like he's the, if I can be serious for a minute and has that gimmick. But especially with Awesome, there was a couple guys in the alliance that I think especially were botched, and I think Awesome's one of them because he was one of the first guys to kind of come in. And Storm was, the actual first guy with the super kick, back in May or whatever, and
Yep.
And it's just, Awesome had the size. He was a world champion in ECW, and you'd already seen how WCW kind of floundered him, and this was a great chance for WWF to kind of resurrect his career and give him a lot to work with, and later on, and I just didn't think this promo did any favors to him, kind of jobbing them out. And then we can get to the actual matches, though.
Yep. Mike gives Edge a clothesline in the corner, flying clothesline and neckbreaker by Edge. Mike throws Edge into the post. Mike leaps over the ropes onto Edge, a bulldog to Awesome, release German suplex to Edge, spinning heel kick to Lance Storm. Billy Silverman stops Christian from hitting a concerto on Mike Awesome. And then Storm super kicks Edge in the face, basically, and Mike pins him. For this match, again, it was fine. I went 2 stars again as well. I thought it was good. They are just trying to give WCW, make the WCW guys look good. And, WWF is down. WWF is down a couple of points here for Raw.
Yeah, I went 2 stars here. I think this is one of the qualms I have with the booking here, though, because it's one of those things where, and this is one of my main problems with the Invasion overall, is if you just look at win-loss record, the Alliance may be pretty competitive with WWF and actually WWF versus Alliance matches, but they presented the Alliance as the pure heels, and so, in this match, there's all this interference and kind of running interference where Billy Silverman's grabbing the chair and then Storm hits the super kick and whatever. So, I mean, yeah, Awesome wins, but it took a lot for him to claim the victory. And overall, I just think it makes them look weak in comparison, that they have to use nefarious means almost every time to gain any victory. Also, with Heyman now firmly as kind of the mouthpiece for ECW, he's off the commentating booth for this show. So you have Michael Cole and Jim Ross together, and I thought they were pretty bad on this show. And then at the end of this match, so this is the second match, and Cole says, "Well, WWF is 0-3 versus the Alliance." I guess Spike Powerbomb and Molly was a match in his, or Bubba Powerbomb Molly was a match in his eyes. But yeah, that was rough too. But yeah, I mean, again, I thought the action in this match was fine for what it was, a very quick TV match. But the finish kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, you can't have 2 of your lead guys commentating each other's stuff, basically. It's like Michael Cole just repeats everything that Jim Ross is saying, or it's like vice versa. It's like, Jim Ross says it 10 minutes later, Michael Cole will say the exact same thing with just one extra word or a different word. It's like, we get the point,
Right.
Yep. So now we are backstage again. Jericho is backstage, and he's making fun of Stephanie, saying ECW means every customer welcome. And, he basically says, making movies isn't such a bad idea, but not those kind of movies. Booker T has enough, and he challenges Chris Jericho, and he puts the WCW title on the line. Regal and Tajiri are backstage. Jerry wants to commentate on the Regal and Taz match, and then we have Shane, Steph, and Paul are backstage. They're discussing who will represent WCW and ECW, and it will be Booker T, the Dudley Boys, DDP, and Rhino.
Yeah, I got some thoughts on this. So the 5 guys they present, it's just, I don't know. Like it just didn't sound too big. And I know they had some coming, but I always, even rewatching this, I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, like Rob Van Dam's not in the inaugural brawl. He's in another match. I just think like even he's in there in the mix. It just feels a little weak. I don't know. Like we've seen Paige get beat up already, so.
But he's had some edges with he's had some like good comebacks against the Undertaker. Like he's sneaky with Taker a lot. And then you got the main guy, Booker T. He's made an impact on Team WWF. He beat Kurt Angle, and he's going up against Jericho now. I mean, he put Stone Cold through a table, so Austin hasn't wrestled since. Do you think Rhino was? I'm going to ask Souza, who I have on Invasion, when we do the Invasion watch along. Do you think Rhino was the wrong guy to put in the five-man main event?
I think the problem with Rhino is his establishment in ECW really felt like it was one of those, okay, like everybody else is left, so now we got to put all our chips behind you and just incredible. Like by that point in ECW's run, it felt too far removed. I don't hate slotting Rhino in this match due to the fact that he's young. He was pushed in ECW. This is just one of those things where, like, I mean, the Dudley Boys were an established WWF tag team for a year and a half, and now they're on the Alliance side. And going into this match, if you had the Dudley Boys in a random tag match versus Undertaker and Kane on pay-per-view, you wouldn't think the Dudley Boys would win. And the same thing, like if you had Rhino versus Kurt Angle going into a random singles match, you wouldn't think Rhino would win. So it was just, to me, it was an uphill climb to build credibility. And they could have got there, but again, I don't think the way they pushed this show did a great job of convincing anyone that the 5 people for the ECW, WCW side could really stand toe-to-toe and create a threat for WWF.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like Canyon could do it either,
No, I mean, I don't know who they could have had based it on who it was. But yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it just does seem like at this point that these are like the main guys on the alliance here, and until we get someone who's coming, who might be who might be coming over, I won't spoil anything, but but then we had Vince. He goes to the friendly tap. He tries to talk to Austin. He is like really begging for the old Austin to come out, but Austin is just ignoring Vince the whole time. And then Vince leaves. And then we have Taz versus William Regal. And Jerry's on commentary. Regal goes to work on Taz, running knee to Taz, suplex to Regal. Then Tajiri enters the ring and shows Taz an ECW shirt, but kicks Taz in the face and puts him in the tarantula lock. For the match itself, I don't know if he rated or not. I gave it a 1/4 star. It was good, but it was mostly for pushing storyline forward? Where will Tajiri join ECW, or is he always going to be on Regal's side with the WWF?
Yeah, I mean, so Taz, I think, was another huge casualty. I mean, he was someone that was floundering in his first year and a half in WWF. This angle could have gave him, a new lease on life, and it's one of those things. It's like we're only 3 years removed in 1998 where it was a vocal minority, but the hardcore ECW fans were putting Taz up there with anybody in the wrestling world. Like, when you have the Goldberg versus Steve Austin debates, you would always have, kind of those little people pepping up and being like, well, what about Taz? And he had his fans, and to see him, lose this match, get outsmarted by Tajiri, the fact that they kind of blew through, I thought, a couple weeks of storyline. That's something like with the Wrestling Warzone, we chronicled Dallas Page, spurning the NWO by them thinking he's joining them, and he doesn't. And that was built week after week after week, like about 8 weeks of build. And here we have this done in about 5 minutes, where Tajiri acts like he's going along with Taz. Then he turns on him, he blows the mist onto the ECW shirt. So I was not a fan of this segment much at all.
Yeah, so but it just like it looks bad, but like it's trying to pump up, Tajiri versus Taz, which really should be a good match on paper. You got the suplex machine versus like the karate kick master, basically, So we'll see what happens at Invasion.
Two guys that didn't, and they didn't pair up when Tajiri was really coming on in ECW. Taz was on his way out. So
yeah. DDP and Rhino are backstage. DDP says something big will go down in the main event tonight. He says he wants all the boys to come in the back and show the unedited version of Sarah. Oh, boy. I didn't even know there was an unedited version of Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Tim White gives Austin another beer. He says, oh, hey, Steve, this one's on the house. Like the other 4 beers weren't on the house either. I'm sure Vince McMahon was right outside ready to pay up Timmy White over there. He says that Stone Cold will make the right decision.
I'm interested. I should have looked this up. I wonder when they taped all this, because I would assume like White says he closed the bar just for Austin, but I don't know. They may have taped this earlier in the day or something like that. I'd be interested to know that.
Yep. Now we have Booker T versus Chris Jericho. WCW titles on the line. Baseball slide to Booker T. Jericho hangs Booker off the guardrail. Crossbody to Booker. Spinning heel kick to Jericho. Shane gets on the apron, but Jericho kicks out. Spine buster to Jericho. A flapjack to Booker. Missile drop kick to Booker. Bulldog to Booker T. Jericho counters the scissors kick and gets Booker T into the walls of Jericho, but Nick Patrick pretends to not see Booker T tapping. Earl Hebner comes out and takes out Patrick. Then Shane McMahon takes out Earl Hebner before he can ring the bell and declare Jericho the new WCW champion. And Jericho takes out Shane, but then Booker T low blows Jericho, and Nick Patrick fast counts Jericho out. For this matchup, Chad, 2 3/4 I went. It's all right. Like, it was a good performance by both guys, but again, we have a hokey pokey finish. You're trying to tell 2 storylines at one time, that these referees are fighting back and forth, and that it's all about WCW versus WWF. But again, interference after interference when you got really 2 great athletes here.
Yeah, I went 3 stars on the match. I like the match. I mean, I think there is a way where you can show that everybody from the announcers to the referees to whatever are kind of ingrained in a feud with each other from these two, conflicting companies going head to head. But the Hebner Patrick stuff in the middle of a world title match, it's like, who cares? Like, them fighting.
Yes.
Hebner's punches are horrendous. And then you get the hokey stuff too, where Booker has to tap out, so we get a visual tap out, of course. And Hebner's calling for the bell, but Shane catches his arm, which it's like, is that really a technicality that if he doesn't officially wave his arm, then it doesn't count? So the finish here was a mess and brought everything down from what I thought was a really good TV match. And I will say, I think this was one of the first times you saw the Shane Booker dynamic, which I'll enjoy throughout the fall.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so now you have Paul Heyman. He's trying to recruit any former ECW star that is now in WWF. He's trying to recruit Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn just says sausages, and then Paul Heyman leaves. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, another dumb Perry Saturn segment here. We're almost there. We're almost to the mop. We got introduced to the mop, but he hasn't named it Moppy yet.
Yeah, Terry is getting progressively annoyed that he's paying more attention to the mop than her.
Yep. And now we have our ECW rules match. It's Raven versus Kurt Angle. Takedown by Kurt, a trash can lid shot, and clothesline by Raven. Drop toe hold by Raven into the trash can. Kurt chokes Raven with his T-shirt. A stop sign and trash can shots to Raven. Angle slam and the ankle lock to Raven for the win. I went 1 star, Chad. It was short, but it got the point that Kurt Angle is tough, and then he starts beating down Raven and Alliance members, and he hits Canyon with a chair shot too. So Kurt Angle is trying to prove that he's tough, and he's ready to go into Invasion here.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Kurt, kind of getting a tune-up match heading into the match at Invasion. And he is getting more of a babyface reaction from the crowd. I just thought that it being at Raven's expense was another miscue. I think what I said about Taz earlier, you could echo with Raven. I mean, it's just when you think, if you're going to have, it's WCW and ECW versus WWF, and you think of ECW, Taz and Raven are two of the first names that come to mind. And here, Raven issues the challenge and then gets completely jobbed out in the match stipulation he wanted within a minute. So understand that it was building up Angle, but it being done at Raven's expense, which, he could have been, again, built up and rectified to be more of a contender, I thought, again, was a mistake on the booking standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Stone Cold is at the friendly task. He's playing pool. And we have our Hardy Boys versus Dudley Boys tag match. We've seen enough of these guys tagging back and forth. Devon and Matt start off, swinging neck breaker to Devon. Bubba tags. Bubba hangs Jeff off the top rope and kicks Jeff. Hurricanrana to Bubba by Jeff. Leg drop to Devon, twist of fate, and swanton bomb to Devon. Bubba Ray pulls Jeff out. RVD comes out, and he holds on to Devon to pin Matt. For this matchup, it's fine. I went 2 stars. Again, a little hokey finish here, and it's weird that RVD has to hold on to Devon so he can hold down Matt for the win here. I feel like there could have been a different way of doing doing this finish here. So I went 2 stars on it.
Yeah, I mean, this was an abbreviated TV match for these guys. I agree with what you said about the finish. Only positive I'll say here is I think Rob Van Dam around this time frame feels so different and electrifying and really kind of does create that edge and spark that they were looking for with the Alliance members. I would say only Booker T kind of match it. He doesn't match it, but he's up there too. But Booker T to me and Rob Van Dam are the two kind of standouts from the Alliance standpoint. And so him giving the frog splash, now he has a match with Jeff Hardy at Invasion. So that should be an exciting match.
So now also the Dudley Boys hold Jeff down, and RVD gives a 5-star frog splash to Jeff. Vince tells the APA to round up the troops, and now we have in backstage that the Alliance Coalition is backstage. Stephanie tells the guys this is their last chance. Shane says there is no going back to the WWF, that the line in the sand is drawn and we have to win. WWF holds their own rally meeting. They're not going to take it anymore with the WCW and ECW coalition. Bradshaw said starting tonight, we're not taking it anymore. If you look, Chad, if you look at the WWF side, it's not like it's bad. You got I feel like you have like a weak roster with them a little bit. You got like K-Quick, Scotty Too Hottie, Blackman, even like the Big Show is like not even a force to be reckoned with. Like he's on the sideline, like sitting at a desk basically.
Kai and Ty, I think, is in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some bigger guys. I always thought it was a little weird how they made APA be like the main stalwarts on the WWF side to start out here, because even in this rally up the troops speech, I'm rewatching it. S.A. Rios also next to William Regal. That's pretty humorous.
Yeah.
But you have Undertaker and then APA, and it's a little weird that you have Kane, Jericho, Angle all like sitting here listening to Farouk whatever give them the big rally cry speech.
Yep, well, it gets better, Chad. It does.
Yes.
Undertaker says to hell with Austin. He didn't want to be. If he wanted to be here, he would have came back to us. So, they don't care about Austin because Austin's not here. And then, out of nowhere, first Undertaker goes, there's no shame in going out there and fighting. And even if you get your ass kicked, at least you tried. And then out of nowhere, Freddie Blassie, of all people, is wheeled out by the Brooklyn Brawler. And actually, Freddie Blassie gets up from his wheelchair and says, gentlemen, the time has come. Stand up and fight. So, they're all just like chanting, fight, 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 fight. And, WWF guys are just getting ready to put on a war here tonight. Stone Cold leaves the friendly tap after hitting a pool cue over the table, basically.
Yeah, so I liked all three of these kind of segments. The Alliance stuff I thought was well done. APA aside, I thought once Taker and especially Freddie Blassie come in, that was cool. And then turning to Austin, leaving the friendly tap.
Yep. And, when we get 3 great segments, you get a bad match here as well to bring it down just a little bit. It's Trish versus Terry. Terry slapped Trish. Trish giant swing to Terry. Terry throws Trish by her hair. A jawbreaker to Trish. A bulldog to Terry for the win. For this match, I went a 0.5 star. Trish is still green, but she is trying to show that she belongs in the ring as well. But she is still green here, and Terry does absolutely nothing.
Yeah. This only goes a minute, but it was hideous. Terry, one time, she runs for the ropes and then falls face first without even being hit or anything, and just her movements are awful. So this was bad. This was bad.
And then we have Tori and Stacy. They come down and double T and Trish. Lita comes in and gives Stacy the twist of fate as well. So they're getting set for their matchup here.
Yeah, I mean, so it's very different. You got to think in 2001 eyes, but yeah, I mean, setting up the tag team bra and panties match, but once again, the Alliance guys kind of get punked out here because as soon as Lita comes, she beats up Stacy and Tori pretty handily and hits the twist of fate, as you said.
Yep. So now we have our main event. It is Undertaker and Kane versus DDP and Rhino. Taker and Kane clean house and throw DDP and Rhino to the outside. Kane goes to work on Rhino. A big boot to Rhino. A power slam by Kane. Old school to Rhino. DDP throws Undertaker into the steps. Sidewalk slam to DDP. And that's about it as Team WCW beat down Kane and The Undertaker. The Team WWF members come out to fight. But then ECW comes to the ring and a huge brawl ensues. Stone Cold Steve Austin arrives backstage. He enters the building and he is just laying out Alliance members all over the place. But Willie comes to the ring and surprise, as probably one of the biggest pop, loudest pop besides him coming to help Mick Foley win the title on January 4th, 1999. This is like one of his the second or third biggest pop for Stone Cold as he comes down to the ring and he just beats down every WCW and ECW superstar, and he's laying everybody out with stunners as he can who's wearing a WCW or ECW shirt. And then, they all pull each other, the WWF guys clean house, and they pull all each other together. And it looks like the WWF is on the same page here as well. Before we go, we get a segment where Brooklyn Brawler is leading Stephanie McMahon. We're leading Freddie Blassie away from the arena. Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon chase him down, and Stephanie delivers the lines across as, just like the WWF, you have one thing in common: you'll both be dead soon. So, little hesitancy with those lines to poor Freddie Blassie.
Yeah. Tag match, I didn't think it was very good. I thought Kane and Undertaker just completely dominated Paige and Rhino too much. Again, you get the big schmoz with the beatdown. That was fine. And then we get to the Austin stuff, and I actually had a discussion with Justin, and I feel like we're on two different pages, but I get that the pop was massive. Like, you can't deny that, but and I understand it's Stone Cold Steve Austin, so I get that to one degree. But I mean, he had to have laid out like 10 to 15 different Alliance guys when he does this run in. And on one hand, with what happens at the pay-per-view, I guess you can maybe say, like, all right, that's not as egregious, that maybe they took the fall or something like that. But to me, that's a pretty big break in logic. And overall, I again, like, if you're trying to sell that this is this huge threat that crippled Freddie Blassie is standing up because WWF is so threatened. I just didn't think. I mean, it just felt like, okay, like when Austin came out, it was almost like, well, here's the real star, like, all right, like he's clearly on another level stardom wise than anybody else in the ring. And I don't know. Like I mean, I guess he has to be involved in this angle. Like I don't know if you can do it without him, but yeah. I mean, he really morphed through, and I mean, he beat up the entire alliance almost by himself here. So it just didn't. It felt like, okay, we got a great pop for the live crowd, but overall as a viewer, and I remember watching this real time, I was like, yeah, like this is kind of why I quit watching WCW. It's just like, they didn't have, it is with who they had to work with, but it's like they didn't have to do this angle right now either. And it just feels like, well, we don't have the true stars. When you think of WCW in the later years, you think of your Goldbergs, Flair, Sting, Nash, Hogan. You think of those guys, Hall, and we have none of those guys, sans Booker. And as we talked about, the ECW quote unquote legends like Taz and Raven have been treated horribly on this show. So it just feels like, I don't know, they're just not much of a threat.
No, they're not, but they are trying to at least like make them look good. You can't deny that, I don't think. Like, they are really trying to make them look good, like a force to be reckoned with all the attacks. I know it's like all like screwy finishes, but Booker T has been giving us good wrestling as well. And Rob Van Dam is not that far behind on where he's going to project being in the alliance,
Yeah, I would push back on them looking good. I don't think they've actually been looking very good. I felt in this show they looked pretty incompetent in most of the segments. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the Dudleys powerbombing Molly, and otherwise it felt like they kind of had to skate by with everything, and then, like I said, in the ending brawl, Austin stunners everybody into oblivion, including people that are in the match itself on Sunday. So I don't know. I just don't feel like they're a threat in much of any way at this point.
Well, let's see if you change your mind just a little bit on as we get to the 3-day period before Invasion. As we have we have SmackDown July 19th at the Fleet Center in Boston. Shane McMahon comes out with the WCW crew. Steph and Paul come out with the ECW group. Shane says the WWF hasn't faced talent like these guys in the ring, which is kind of I think that's a terrible line because you got destroyed on Raw, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so this is kind of your typical, like, the heels rallying up the promo before the big show, and I mean, it was fine. Like, well, first off, Stephanie gets rid of the awful braid that her hair was on Raw, so that was an improvement.
Yeah.
And Shane and Stephanie's promo to start off things was, decent. I think Paul really steps up when he grabs the microphone, and then you have him even, he'd start talking about Vince McMahon Sr. and Vince McMahon and Jr. and Ross has to correct him, by saying that, he basically killed Vince Sr. and all this. So
that's a damn lie.
Yeah.
So he says, says that like lines, like face talent. It's like there's no talent here. I mean, there is, but there really isn't. Says they've invested everything into WCW and ECW. Stephanie McMahon says that no WWF. Well, Shane says no WWF superstar will deny them from their destiny. Steph says nothing can stop this invasion from happening. Steph also says that they will play fair. They won't play fair at Invasion. They're going to play dirty. And then Paul says they're not sports entertainers. They're wrestlers. And Vince McMahon has made wrestling a dirty word, basically. And he says, your father lied to his father, to your grandfather about not competing and putting everybody out of business. He lied. And then what happened when your father owned WWF, your grandfather died. And so your father killed your grandfather, kids. And Jim Ross like, that's a damn lie. Vince McMahon Sr. died of cancer.
Yeah, had to let us know right away what the true story was.
Yeah, because someone would have been like, Vince killed his dad. Oh gosh. But like at this time, Vince was letting like Paul like go do roughshod because I think really Vince McMahon loved Paul Heyman's microphone work, as we'll see when we get to 3 days before Survivor Series as well. Down that line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Vince is backstage with Jericho. Vince says actions speak louder than words. Jericho has a match with DDP tonight. Jericho goes over everything he said about Steph, and Vince says he should have called her a no-good bottom-feeding tramp. So Vince McMahon is really dissing his daughter here as well.
Yeah, this was an odd one. Where he said that Jericho actually didn't go far enough. It felt a little weird, to be honest, even hearing it now.
Yep. So now we have DDP versus Chris Jericho. Paige goes to work on Jericho. Clotheslines and a crossbody to Paige. Paige counters the walls of Jericho. A tornado power bomb by Paige. DDT by Jericho. A bulldog by Jericho. Nick Patrick tries to fast count Jericho. Jericho then throws Nick Patrick down. Nick DQs Jericho. Jericho puts Nick Patrick in the walls of Jericho. Paige brings in a chair but gets put in the walls of Jericho. And then Jericho hits Paige with the chair. The match itself, I gave a 1.25 stars. It was all right. I mean, I like that tornado power bomb, and then Jericho lays in all of his stuff. Again, we get like Nick Patrick again, throwing shade at Jericho, and he DQs him as well. So, 1.25 stars, Chad.
Okay, I gave it a little bit better than you. I went 2 stars here. This will be a recurring theme for me. Like I kind of consider Raw, in my opinion, a pretty bad show. Like I just thought it wasn't very successful in what it wanted to convey. Whereas as we'll get through with the SmackDown, like I didn't think it was a great show by any means, but I thought it had less kind of comedic segments, and I thought it had in ring better action. Not a lot of lengthy matches, but most of the matches were given 5 to 6 minutes, 4 to 6 minutes instead of the kind of the 2 to 4 minutes that it seems like we got on Raw. So I thought this was fine. Page overall in WWF is he's very frustrating and perplexing to me. I think he's someone that, to kind of your true WCW fans, he was somebody that we got behind. We kind of made him, he became a star in that promotion. We saw him go from, the lowest of the low on the totem pole to being a joke character to being a bona fide main eventer that people will still argue to this day, like, should have ended Goldberg's streak at Halloween Havoc 1998. So it pains me to see him as this like stalker, weird character and somebody that gets beat up fairly easily. So I have a problem with that. And then again, we had some it was a little funny. Nick Patrick and Chris Jericho kind of revitalized their feud from 5 years previously. They're going after each other a little bit in this match, but yeah, overall a little bit of a hokey ending with the chair, but at least with the chair being used, like we get some violence again. Like if this is a hate-filled feud, I want to see stuff get violent and there being some aggression instead of stuff being played for laughs. So this being, Jericho using the chair and being angry, I thought tonally fit better than some of the stuff we saw on Raw.
Mm-hmm. William Regal is backstage. He finds Paul Heyman sitting in his chair, no less, with his feet up on the desk. Paul tries to recruit Regal to the WCW and ECW coalition. Paul says Regal is a classy guy and ECW is all about class. Regal says, Paul, get your bloody feet off the table and get out of my office. You can all go to hell. And he throws Paul out of his office.
Yeah, I mean, this was fine. I don't have much thoughts on this. It was okay.
Now we have Lance Storm versus Christian. Clothesline the Storm to the outside. Storm cheap shots Edge. And Michael Awesome clotheslines Christian. Rolling side slam by Storm. Backbreaker by Christian. Back body drop and drop kick to Storm. Spinning backbreaker by Christian. Mike Awesome pulls Storm out. Earl Hebner argues with Edge. Mike comes in with a chair, but is stopped by Hebner. Edge spears Lance Storm and Christian pins him. For this matchup, I'm going to star in 3/4, Chad. I thought it was fine. The WWF is getting one over on the WCW guys, and Edge has to interfere in the matchup here and help Christian win. So I want to star in 3/4.
Yeah, 2.25 for me. Again, I thought it was a pretty decent match in ring. You really see parody booking as we almost get the same exact finish from the awesome Edge match on Raw, just a reverse on SmackDown with Storm delivered the super kick. Here Edge delivers the spear, and then the Christian's able to get the pin. But yeah, overall I thought this was fine. And again, you had the chair, so you saw more aggression. You didn't have the pre-match Edge and Christian promo, so I thought that was a good thing. So I thought this was again more successful than their segment on Raw.
Yeah. I agree. I would agree with you. It looks like they are trying to put in a little bit more like power in to hype up this pay-per-view here tonight as well. Mm-hmm. So then Sergeant Slaughter comes into Vince's office. Sarge has news for Vince that Stone Cold is here, so Vince is a happy, joy person. Tori Wilson and Stacy are getting prepared for their arm wrestling match. Nick Patrick comes in and says he will be the ref. And sort of weird, Tori and Stacy are coming on to Nick Patrick, so he's all giddy about it.
Yeah, this was creepy, but again, if you're gonna put stuff I don't care about, if you cram it into one segment, which I don't care about the bra and panties match, and I don't care about the officials fighting, okay, cram it into one segment, be done with it. So there's only one thing I don't have to worry about.
So this is a weird segment to me because we were shown at the top of the show that it's going to be Tajiri, Undertaker, and Kane versus Taz and the Dudley Boys. But Here's the thing: Regal tells Tajiri that his tag team partners are Undertaker and Kane. It's we know that already. I don't understand it too. But Regal then tells Undertaker and Kane what they have to do. And Tajiri is backstage mimicking everything Regal does. Regal says, so it's you gotta choke slam him and this, and then cover him. Tajiri basically plays dead on Regal's desk. And Undertaker goes, "Did he take his medicine?"
Yeah. This is one of those things. I mean, I think this is 2001 in a nutshell. Like when you get to the Austin Angle stuff, it's that too. Like, I mean, this is played for laughs. Tajiri, I mean, he's humorous. Like it's funny if you watch it as a standalone. And I understand it has its place. It's just I'm not sure it's for the best leading into this kind of first big event with WCW versus WWF. So that'd be my only pushback. Like as a standalone segment, certainly like the comedic timing, it's humorous with Kane staring at Tajiri with his mask. It just felt like kind of the wrong place for it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So then Austin arrives in Vince's office. Stone Cold doesn't want a hug from Vince, and then he says he wants a water and an ice cold beer. But you see that Stone Cold is becoming the old Stone Cold because he doesn't want hugs anymore from Vince.
Right.
And now we have the Dudley Boys and Taz versus Undertaker, Kane, Tajiri. Brawl ensues by all six men. Kane and Devon start off. Bubba hangs Kane off the top rope. Big boots of Taz. Face plant by Bubba. Spinning elbow by Devon. Huge suplex by Taz. Huge kick to Taz's face. DDT by Undertaker to Taz. Tajiri walks into a Taz mission. Taz gets chokeslammed by Undertaker for the win. For this matchup, I thought it was fine. It was a standard six-man tag. Really good for WWF guys to stand tall. I went 2 stars on it.
Yeah, 2.5. I'm a little higher than you on most of these match, James. I like this match actually for a match itself. I'm not going to praise Undertaker too much for his 2001 in ring. But I thought he was pretty motivated here for kind of a throwaway TV match. And I will say, I thought, again, Taz showed more aggression. It almost felt like they were trying to retcon some of the stuff that happened Monday because, I mean, he's showing aggression and beating up Tajiri, which I appreciated. And, we talked about it. Like, the Dudleys themselves have been booked well as alliance members, but it just, to me, the only negative with them is they feel it's weird because they had been in the WWF less than 2 years, but they kind of felt so ingrained as WWF that them turning to the Alliance felt a little weird. Or it's like, all right, well, they're matched up against a lot of these guys that we've seen them matched up with before, so the novelty wasn't there as it was with somebody like Rob Van Dam, and Booker T facing these new, fresh matchups.
Yeah, so I mean, it was like a good standing, good matchup for all 6 competitors here. And then we go backstage again. It's Trish and Lita. They're backstage just discussing Invasion. Earl Hebner says he will be the ref for the arm wrestling match. And now, so you know where they're going basically. With this, they're trying to get two storylines into one segment here. So we'll get there. Bradshaw takes on Sean O'Haire. A DDT by Bradshaw. Bradshaw throws O'Haire into the steps. Flying elbow block by Bradshaw. Forearm and Farouk and Palumbo brawl. Huge spinning kick to Bradshaw. Fall leg slam to O'Haire. Big boot to Palumbo. And a clothesline from hell to O'Haire for the win. For this matchup, I went 2.5. Chad.
So this is where my praise for this show kind of dwindles. I thought the finish was poor. I mean, again, I think O'Haire showed a lot of potential in the dying days of WCW, and showed a lot here. Like he, as a match itself, I thought this was interesting. Like Bradshaw breaks out a Lama-Histro cradle in the early going, and but O'Haire to me is showing a lot of his athleticism throughout this match and mixing in the power moves. And then to him, job clean to Bradshaw, I thought was a misstep. I thought this would have been a good opportunity for the Alliance to have a strong win. Bradshaw's not somebody that's been overly protected in WWF. He can take a loss here, certainly in a singles match at this point. So just get over the new guys, make them look strong, let O'Hare win. And it felt like giving the tag titles to APA felt like that type of booking where you were like, well, if you're going to have these, interpromotional type matches, then giving them the tag titles, it seems very easily for them to get beat by the WCW contingent, and WCW to go on a run and gain some momentum beating the WWF tag team champions because it felt very out of left field to APA winning the tag titles in the first place. But yeah, I mean, Bradshaw getting the clean win here was unneeded for sure.
Mm-hmm. So now we have Tori Wilson versus Trish Stratus, arm wrestling. They lock up. Nick Patrick elbows Hebner. And then Stacy pulls Trish's hand down, so Tori wins. Lita spears Stacy. Earl Hebner starts beating up Nick Patrick. Trish and Lita give Nick Patrick some kicks, and then Earl punches Nick out of the ring, and they're all celebrating. I gave this a dud. The segment is like it's so bad. Like this is bad. I gave this a dud.
Yeah, this was garbage.
Move on.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, I don't fathom how any of this made you want to see the. I mean, so here's the thing: like, if you're playing the women's match for TNA value, which you are because it's a bra and panties match, like. You've had no teasing of that aspect in their feud so far. Like your usual WWF tropes that you would think that aren't great, obviously, but worked at the time. They had a time and place where like they would take off the shirt of Tori, whatever to get it over. Like here, you have this lame arm wrestling match that. Tori, again, the Alliance member only wins through nefarious means. Then you have Earl Hebner. I mean, like him kicking Nick Patrick and Nick Patrick selling. This was awful. So overall, I mean, the segment sucked.
Yep. So we got that out of the way here, and then now we have. Let's see. Yep. We are backstage with Stone Cold and Vince. Vince gets off the phone with his attorney. He announces divorce proceedings are on hold. I can see why they are, because it looked like that if the WCW original plan went through and everything was on the up and up, I think it was going to be Vince and Linda and Shane McMahon, like Linda being Shane's financial backer for WCW versus Vince McMahon. Like I think Linda was going to go rogue and join her son in this WCW monopoly, basically. That's what I think. But now it's like, now we know it's the parents versus the kids again. It's like, well, whatever happened, yeah, they're on hold and they're going to work it out in therapy, basically.
Right.
Did you think that was probably going to go that way?
No, I haven't really thought about that, but that's an option they could have done for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of had to change a lot with. The WWF wasn't going to be heels, right? So if they're doing the invasion angle, Vince had been so deplorable the last 7 months of TV, straight from the "I Want a Divorce" promo to win. All of a sudden now he's the rah babyface trying to save his promotion. So it is a big tonal shift that they had to do, certainly booking wise for Vince.
Yep. So now we have, and then he says that he has surprise for Stone Cold. Now we have what I think is the match of the night here: Jeff Hardy and X-Pac versus Billy Kidman and Rob Van Dam. Jeff and Kidman start off. Leg drop by RVD to Jeff. Hurricanrana by Jeff to RVD. A spinning heel kick by X-Pac. Rolling Thunder to X-Pac. A powerbomb to Kidman. A jawbreaker to Van Dam. Poetry in motion and a Bronco Buster to Kidman. Jeff misses Kidman with a Swanton bomb. 5-star frog splash to Jeff for a 2 count. Kidman hits X-Pac with, I call it a head scissors slam. I don't know what you call it, but for the win. And for this matchup, I'm going to go 3 stars on it. I really thought this one was good. And we saw a lot from a preview, but really good preview from Van Dam and Jeff, and also X-Pac and Billy Kidman. Like, Kidman might not have been like might have been a standout, but like he was really showing that he could hang with the cruiserweight or whatever's left of the light heavyweight division here.
Yeah, I went 3 stars as well. I thought this was a lot of fun. And I think this is kind of the fresh matchup stuff that you were salivating, looking to in the alliance, because I mean, all 4 of these guys matched up, kind of interspersed with each other. It felt like there was a lot of interesting stuff. Like even, Kidman versus Jeff Hardy felt like a fun matchup that could have happened down the road, and Jeff Hardy versus Van Dam, obviously they continued to build for that, but X-Pac was still a good worker, and he was somebody that Kidman was pretty much a pure jobber when Six was prominent in WCW, and it felt just everything felt very fresh. The action felt more spirited than a lot of the stuff we'd seen. So overall, I thought this was a really good, fun TV match that still left you wanting to see the 2 matches on pay-per-view that it was building towards. So it was successful all around. My only slight negative, and I did like this, but another kind of good point was I liked after the 5-star frog splash, like X-Pac had to break the pin. I thought that was nice because that could have been an easy area where Hardy could have kicked out of that, and they kind of blown that move already, but then it leads right to the finish where Kidman actually gets the pin on X-Pac. So again, this was well done, booking wise and ring wise, and was a fun TV match.
Yeah, so before we get into our last 2 segments here, let's go over the card here. We have Mike Awesome and Lance Storm versus Edge and Christian. We have Nick Patrick versus Earl Hebner. The APA versus Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo. We have the hardcore title match between Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. We have Tajiri versus Taz. The bra and panties match here with Tori and Stacy versus Trish and Lita. We also have our matchup between and then we have like the I think it's just the main event that's announced. It's like Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, Undertaker, and Kane versus Booker T, DDP, Rhino, and the Dudley Boys. We get then we get announced like it's like Regal versus Raven. That came out of nowhere. And then we have like one more match too, where it's like the Big Show, Hardcore Holly, and Billy Gunn versus Hugh Morris. I think it's Canyon and Sean Stasiak too. So those 2 were like put together for like no storyline reason.
Yeah.
So some of them have like a storyline, but other than that, they're kind of just thrown in there. Like X-Pac and Kidman, they just matched up because one time Scott Hudson said, "Oh, X-Pac's gonna be paying attention to a lot to Kidman and or Helms." He was just seen watching them have a match backstage. And then Regal just decides, "Hey, Earl, go tell Nick Patrick you'll fight him at you'll fight him at Invasion." Okay, it's like, all right.
Yeah, I mean the card as you read it off, it sounds okay, but Yeah, a lot of those feuds, a couple matches as you talked about, were just thrown together with seemingly no rhyme or reason from what we've seen in the shows. Maybe on Sunday night or something they cobble something together, but I don't know. And then a couple of the other matches too. It's just one of those like, oh hey, these are the WCW champions. Well, they're going to be feuding with the WWF champions. So while I mean, the Kidman X-Pac match, I thought they did a good enough job, like, creating intrigue for that, but especially with the tag team stuff, I feel like that's definitely the case, where it's just like, oh, well, they're the tag champions of each respective brand, so they have to be feuding with each other.
Yep. So then we get backstage. Vince McMahon was singing for Stone Cold, but that actually got cut off from the feed. But you see Stone Cold hit Vince with a guitar. I believe he was singing like Camp Down Lady, sing this song, and it's like, welcome, or she'll be coming around the mountain, where he's like, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And like Vince is like making up his own words. And Stone Cold's like, I've had enough of you. And he smacks Vince McMahon with a guitar. And starts like, Vince, you already goes, oh, I'm good. The old Stone Cold's back. I'm good. Then you have Steph, Paul, and Shane. They're backstage pumping up Rhino and Booker T and Rhino for their matchup with Kurt Angle and Austin. Now we have this match here. Tag team match. Booker T and Rhino versus Stone Cold and Kurt Angle. Gore by Rhino to Kurt Angle. Then out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin tosses Booker T out. The stunner to both Booker T and Rhino. And then on the Titantron screen on SmackDown, DDP has kidnapped Deborah and throws her in the back of a limo trunk. So Austin runs out. He tries to get to the limo, but then they attack. But then the Alliance attacks Austin. But Undertaker intercepts DDP in the parking lot, but they get jumped by the WCW and ECW guys. Ankle lock to Booker T, but the Dudley Boys beat up Angle. A Gorda Angle by Rhino, and then a 3D into a table by the Dudley Boys. So in a trap, luring Undertaker and Undertaker, Kane, and Stone Cold into a trap by the Alliance here. The rest of the Alliance team, they get one up on Team WWF by 3Ding and giving Angle a gore, and he takes a 3D through the table here. So I thought it was good. I would say like the match is a like 3. I'm gonna say it's like a half a star. It's not even a match really. Like they're in there, they're getting beat up, but then DDP comes in. But I believe the segment as a whole really left WCW and ECW standing tall, better than Raw actually, Chad.
Yeah, I had some hit and misses on this overall. I thought the match itself was what it was. I mean, I don't think you could have expected much, and you didn't get much. Couple of negatives. I thought Austin getting the stunner on Rhino, having him laid out again. It is Austin, but felt like was making Rhino look a little weak, especially since he's one of the 5 members of the WCW ECW contingent. The whole Paige abducting Deborah, him being again a stalker for the women, felt very out of character and out of place and weird. And then him just sort of lingering back there, allowing himself to get attacked, felt odd. I didn't quite understand that. So those are the negatives. But then the positives were, I thought the final beatdown on Angle inside the ring from the WCW ECW contingent, culminating in the 3D through the table. Did a good enough job of making WCW ECW look strong as kind of your final last second build to the pay-per-view, and then the final shot of the team overall, along with Shane, Stephanie, and Paul raising their hands high, was a good kind of closing image to close out the show.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens at Invasion. Will the WCW ECW coalition survive Invasion? But really good build up here, going back and forth. I finally reached, I would say like the first island of the Invasion, as we get to the actual pay-per-view Invasion, and that's going to be my next episode. So I cannot wait to do the watch along with another guest of mine here as well. Well, that's going to do it for our coverage of the Raw and SmackDown for this week on Nation Invasion. But Chad, do you have anything that you want to plug the listeners to?
You can reach me on X, Twitter, whatever, at Big Boys Play WCW. And please, if you haven't, give Wrestling Warzone a shot. We're heading into the end of February 1997. We're doing Final Four 1997, as well as Super Brawl with Piper versus Hogan too. So two kind of intriguing shows I'm excited to discuss with Justin.
I enjoyed your discussion with Wrestling Warzone about, Piper's kid coming to the ring with him, and then that whole ordeal, like when his kid goes to walks out of the ring, and then Piper fights back against Hogan, and you really see the side of vicious Piper there. So I thought that was really really great. But I've been listening, and where it's just getting started,
Yeah, it's been fun.
As for me, you can, besides this show, you can find me on the Place to Be Network, also talking about ECW on Sci-Fi from 2006 to 2010 on Extreme Resurrection with my partner Steve Riddle. We'll have another episode of that dropping. The last episode we dropped was the fallout from Vengeance 07 on how it was going to be Chris Benoit versus CM Punk for the ECW title. That got changed to the Benoit tragedy, and Johnny Nitro becomes ECW champion. CM Punk defeats Elijah Burke to become number one contender for Nitro's ECW title. So give that a listen too. And, that's about it. You can find me on X or Twitter on at Gruney316, Gruney 316. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Nation Invasion. I want to thank my guest, Chad Campbell. And we will see you next time as we are finally here at the Invasion, the moment that a lot of us have been waiting for, it's finally here after build after build. Be prepared as we, the nation, bring the invasion.